prepare as far as a handout or anything, but since we didn't really get too far into first declension nouns last week, we'll probably go over some of that again, and I figure I'm going to spend some time reviewing again, going over some terms and things, and making sure that you're all solid on some of these areas, and give you all the opportunity to ask me any questions. I'm not saying I'll know the answers, but I'll give you my best shot. Anybody do the examples I gave last week, the bottom 4 on the second sheet? We'll probably do those here in a little bit. I can find it here. The practice was declining the nouns cosmos, doron, agape, and cardia. But if y'all haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, we'll do that a little later. Inflection. When we're starting to talk about nouns and adjectives and things like that in Greek, you really have to understand what inflection is. In English, we don't really have it that much. The best example I can give is our personal pronouns. For example, he. He is my teacher. He is the what? It's the subject of that sentence. So that's in the subjective case, which equates to the nominative case in Greek. You change where he shows up in the sentence. You say the teacher flunked him. You don't say the teacher flunked he. Here, it changes its form. And it's the teacher flunked him. Here, him is what? Direct object. Which in Greek, that's the accusative case. So basically what inflection is depending on what the noun is in the sentence, the word itself changes form. And in Greek, most of the forms will be, there'll be a constant stem that doesn't change, and then it's the case, you've got the case endings at the end of the noun that change depending on whether it's the subject, possessive case, or direct or indirect object. So that little quick review, does anybody have any questions on what inflection is and anything in that area? Does that make sense to everybody? But as you see here, like I said, in English we don't have it that much. Teacher, whether it's the direct object or the subject, is still the same. It doesn't change. So we don't see that in English as often. Another thing that because of the way Greek is written and it has the case endings, you could say, my teacher, he is. The word order doesn't matter, but because of the case endings, you would know that's the direct object, and when you translate it into English, it would be, he is my teacher. So you have to know your case endings to know how the sentence flows, otherwise you'll never be able to translate it. So that's inflection. Another thing that we've talked about is case. We've already talked about it tonight. Case is what the noun is in the sentence. So the subject in English, we've got nominative case in Greek, which equates to the subject in the subjective in English, the nominative, and then the possessive is the genitive, and we'll review these here in a bit. Y'all remember what the indirect object case is? Yes, dative. And then the direct object case, what's it called? It starts with an A. Accusative. So there's 4 main cases. There's the 5th case is the vocative, which is the direct address. That usually, I believe it only shows up in the singular, and it doesn't occur that often in the New Testament. So I tend to overlook it. Jeff showed it to you a couple weeks ago. But I was telling Scott last week that in the New Testament, I think nominative occurs about 31% of the time, accusative about 29%, dative 15%, and 25% for genitive. So that's pretty much 100% there, and this is like less than 1%. So you need to know it, but it's not going to show up that often. Usually it's pretty obvious because it's, a direct address to someone like, "Oh Lord," or in 1 Corinthians, it's about the only time it addresses something that's an inanimate object, but "Oh death." So it doesn't occur much. So anyway, that's just the 5 cases. I think Jeff alluded to the fact that some grammars will teach additional three cases, I believe, but they use the same ending, so there's really no way to tell just from the endings which case it is. They usually fall under the dative and accusative that just kind of branches out, and they kind of give you more information definitely than the beginning class needs to know. So those are cases. And then number you should be a lot more familiar with because English has that number. You got singular and plural. So for each case, genitive, you'll have a singular and a plural. And then we also have gender. In Greek, gender applies to each word, each noun pretty much is one particular gender. We've got masculine, feminine, and neuter. Generally, a word will only be one. So if you when you learn it, you'll learn it as being like logos. It is a masculine word, so it'll always follow masculine. It'll always be masculine. Masculine in the sense that that's the like when we see it in the vocabulary. You got logos, and then last week we also talked about the article, which is basically translated into English as the. So it's the word. It wouldn't show up with a comma, but that's just the way they put it in the vocabulary. So whenever you see a word and it has the article with it, it'll always be whatever gender it is. So this article is the masculine article. You look at some other words on there, the feminine article is he, and the neuter article is to. You would never see to logos, and you would never see he logos. You would always see ho logos. Jeff is going to get into more of the article next week, but the article declines just like the nouns, where logos is nominative, and then genitive is lagu, or logu. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the article here, if you were to see it, it's u, but it actually has a t in front, so it's tu. Only the nominative article doesn't have a t or a tau. I'm saying the English letter. But, I think on that last page that I put, no, I didn't put all the declension of the article on it. So anyway, that's more than you need to know tonight. But I'm just trying to help you out here with words that are masculine are going to follow the same pattern. So they'll have all the articles will always match the noun.